Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Chaos Gym. I'm Rahul, and sorry for the lack of content over the past couple of weeks. Like I said, finals, blah blah blah, school. I know excuses, but those are done. I've got some fun stuff lined up for you guys. Our very own Graft and Roll made top 8 over in London with Greninja, so he'll be back with an interview video explaining how he did, his deck list, etc. We should have something up with Fort Wayne Regionals winner Jimmy Pendarvis, good friend of mine, and some other stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. I've got some exciting stuff planned and some stuff I'd like to work on. So with myself getting some holidays and some time off from school, I have some time to explore. And Dallas may not be happening purely because of family coming and Christmas time, holidays. What can you do? When family's here, you got to spend time with them. So without I guess ranting anymore, let's jump into Alex Hill's ninth place Vespiquen Zebstrika Garbodor deck. Now, for those of you who've stuck with me from the very beginning, who've watched my videos, who know who I am as a person, you'll know that I've been playing Vespiquen Zebstrika forever. Um, Pretty much since States last year. And one of the first videos I made on the channel was Vespiquen Zebstrika Garbodor, albeit it was nothing like this list that Alex piloted. It was a lot of jank in it because I was having fun experimenting with what could be happening. Like I had a Psychic's Third Eye in the deck. That was fun. That was a fun card, not a competitive card, but a fun card. Um, yeah. So I'll talk about Alex's list. I'm sure he'll have an article up on six prizes in the near future talking about his tournament experience in the deck itself. So please check that out as well. Um, yeah, let's jump into it. There's three shamans. You could have a fourth, but it doesn't really do much. I've found throughout playing Vespiquen and standard, expanded, whatever, three shamans is usually the magical number. Because you only usually use two throughout a game. The third is kind of like a luxury. Like if you're benching a third, you're probably losing purely because, or you're like digging for that last couple of cards you need at the end of the game, purely because you need the other bench spots for very important cards like your Garbodor. You need bench spots for your Vespiquen. You need bench spots for your Zebstrika. Um, there is. Oh, before I continue with the deck, I'd like to thank Mikey Fouché a lot for bringing this deck back into my radar. I was thinking about what deck to play for ARG coming up this weekend in Orlando, and I just was like, I'm probably going to play Vespiquen Zebstrika of some sort, but I couldn't decide if it was going to be the Evolutions version or the Garbodor version. And I was talking to Mikey Fouché, and slowly through talking to him, I realized how good the deck still is in a vacuum. Now, if people decide to start countering it, it's just really bad. And it is very heavily draw dependent, so I'd put it at like tier 2, tier 3. But through talking to him, I was able to rekindle my love for Vespiquen. Um, that being said, I will be taking this deck at ARG, so this is the list I'll be playing at ARG Orlando. Maybe one or two cards different depending on what changes I make throughout the week, but this should be almost exactly the list I'll play at ARG Orlando. So if you see me there, say what's up, say hi. It'll be a blast. I'm excited. Um, there's three clef keys. I've tried four when I first started the deck. Four just isn't that great. Like when I started, I did four unknown, four clef key. It's super cute for just like getting Pokemon on the discard very fast. But like those are, it's a card that I could have be anything else. In this case, a recovery card. If you have heavily Gardevoir populated meta or like a heavily Scizor populated meta, maybe a fourth one is worth a consideration. But on that same token, those decks usually aim to Karen you, so you can't one-shot them. And if they're Karening you, they're putting your Clef Keys back in the deck, which is really bad for them. Which I found out at Elite Challenge before Orlando Regionals when I got Karen like 8 times in the same game by a Mega Rayquaza player, and I'm without the Zebstrika, of course. And I'm just sitting there going, Clef Key, hit for like 60. Oh, my turn again. Clef Key, hit for like 60. Karen, okay. Clef Key, hit for like 60, and he was just like, okay, I can't win this. Um, there's a 4/4 Vespiquen, obviously. It's the main attacker of the deck. There's a 3/3 Zebstrika. It's a secondary attacker. You want to have it against Evital. A 3/3 usually helps you clean up most of Evital's Baby Fright Knights, the EXs, get a lot of the tempo in that matchup, and against Mega Ray, you get a lot of the tempo in that matchups. And then once you run out of Zebras, by that point your Vespiquen should be hitting hard enough to take a one shot on quite literally anything, if you've been drawing fortunately enough. So it's just a heavy hitter. It also helps out against like Greninja in the sense where you can knock out a Talonflame early That's really annoying, and it'll soak up a balloon hit. Because you really don't want your Vespiquens taking the balloon hits. Um, because it just becomes balloon hit into shadow stitching, balloon hit into shadow stitching, and then you're just like, okay. Anyway, well, once you have your Garb out, you're doing your own shenanigans, but that's separate. There's a 2-2 Garb, just a consistent line. I've tested 2-1, I've tested 1-1, I've tested 3-2, but 2-2 seems to be the most consistent in getting it out. And if you don't need it, you just pitch the extra pieces. Like I said, more Pokemon in the discard, more damage. Vespiquen loves more Pokemon in the discard. There's 3 unknown. That's the one little thing maybe I disagree with Alex on. Um, 3 unknown. Unknown's just like a free card, and it's an extra 10 damage in the discard. I can see why he played 3. I know he opted for the third Floatstone over the third unknown, but I probably would go for the um, I'd probably stay at 2 Floatstone and go to 4 unknown just because I like having the extra Pokemon, the extra 10 damage, the extra draw card. Um, but then again, it's personal preference. That would be the change that I would make. 4 unknown just seems super standard, super consistent. It does get to be a little bit of a pain when you have a full bench and you just can't use unknowns anymore. Like I've encountered those scenarios plenty of time while playing Flareon or Vespiquen, but happens. There's 4 Acrobike, very very good card in this deck. You draw 2, blah, discard 1. Like obviously, getting Pokemon in the discard is the goal. Um, 1 Revitalizer gives you the 5th Vespiquen, effectively a 5th Vespiquen on command, which is really nice to have because it's not like, oh, I'm gonna super rod this Vespiquen back into my deck. I got an Ultra Ball, I got an N, I got a Juniper, I gotta find it. No, it's just Revitalizer, put it straight to your hand. I got the pieces I need to say you got a Combi on your bench, make it a Vespiquen, and it's very strong. Like I've done back in the day, I used to do plays where I would Battle Compressor away, double Combi, if I had Revitalizer in my opening hand, and I would just Revitalizer the double Combi back to my hand and bench him on my first turn. Um, just it opens up cube plays you can do. There's 2 special charge. You could go down to 1. That's a debate I've been having with Fred Hoban for the past couple days. Um, Going down to 1, going up to a second recovery card of Pokemon, or a third recovery card of Pokemon, or a 4th unknown, because he thinks 1 special charge is enough. I think that 2 is absolutely needed, giving you 8 DCEs to play around with effectively, and most of the time you're discarding some early, so it's just better safe than sorry. There's 1 Super Rod. Helps you get back the Zebras, helps you get back pieces of the Garb, and like I found myself like super rodding back like 3 unknowns sometimes just so I can have those draw cards for later in the game and like say the Evital matchup, or like putting back a Shaman or a Klefki's just because I want to be able to deal with Megas. Um, I like Super Rod. It's a good card. If you don't like Super Rod and say you want to go for the more Vespiquen oriented approach, you could cut that for a second Revitalizer. Also a very good card just because you have 6 Vespiquens on command. Arguably, Revitalizer is a stronger card purely because you play Forest. But like I said, there's merit to both. 4 Ultra Ball, 4 VS Seeker, standard stable stuff. 2 Lysander, 2 N, 4 Sycamore. That's I think your standard. The set of supporters you should be playing in standard. I don't think playing anything less than 2 Lysander is acceptable in standard purely because there's so many bench targets in the standard format. Volcanion plays big EXs that sit on the bench that just don't do anything. Rayquaza does the same. Rainbow Road does the same. Vespiquen plays Shamans that sit on your bench. Evital plays like they aim to build up a big EX. You just have to go for it at some point. Greninja does the same thing where they hide behind balloons. Lysander is probably one of the best cards in standard right now. And if I could, I would probably play 3. I remember the League Challenge, I had a deck list error where I wrote Lysander 3 times instead of teammates. So I ended up having to play 3 Lysander, and I've never won easier games because I would just literally I would just ignore their aggressor and just go for their bench because I knew I had up to 7 Lysanders. Um, 2N. Sometimes you have really, really weird hands that you don't want to discard with this deck. Eddie is always better sometimes, I think. 4 Sycamore. Again, you want to discard stuff. Get stuff in the discard, get rolling. You want to go zoom, zoom, fast, fast. 1 Ranger. Um, Late game gives you a really good shot against Giratina decks. Um, like it just makes it so you don't just lose to Chaos Wheel, which a lot of the time you do. Um, the Ranger I'm kind of split on. Like I can see it working, I can see it just being bad. Because when I was testing it, just I don't know. I'd rather have that card be like a teammates or something. But The Ranger does give you a chance against Giratina base decks and decks that play Jirachi promo. I think the main concern for the Ranger was for Glaceon because there was a lot of hype surrounding the Glaceon lock decks, like Glaceon Garbodor, Glaceon Regis Garbodor, or whatever that the deck that did really well with. Um, yeah. There's one Forest of Giant Plants. I think you need to have at least one stadium in a deck in the standard format. In this instance, Alex selected Forest, which is the same one I would go with. Um, it being one of just giving you swing turns, where like even going second, you could probably attack with Vespiquen if you draw well enough on your first turn. If you have Forest Revitalizer, you can just set up a Vespiquen out of nowhere. Those options are fantastic. The other stadium there's two other stadiums that could be up for consideration in this deck. One being Parallel City, purely because every deck plays Parallel City, and paralleling yourself to 3 before they parallel you to 20 less damage is a lot better. You can just like bench Shamans recklessly and just parallel two of them away, which is something I would do a lot of the time during City season last year. And it was just annoying for them because like if people are playing parallel as well, they have to either delinquent you and then put their own parallel down to limit you down to 20 less damage, which actually hurts a lot in this format purely because you don't have Muscle Band, you don't have Silver Bangle, you don't have compressors to boost your damage in ridiculous numbers. Yeah, so parallel sucks for this deck a lot. It hurts. Um, but on that same token, another stadium you could play is Faded Talent if you're really afraid of megas. Like if your meta is like heavily Mega Guardy or like heavily Mega Ray or something. Mega Ray is just we're not going to talk about that because that's free. But heavily Mega Guardy, we'll say for example, you just kind of like faded and you go pop pop pop, and if they cannot bounce the faded, you're getting 60 damage in. Every turn they don't bounce the faded, that's 40 more damage coming in between turns, which is cool, awesome, and every damage counts with Vespiquen. Like you're crunching numbers in your head. You're saying, what can I sacrifice? How can I get this additional 10, 20 damage? It's just, it's a numbers game with the deck. There's three Floatstone. I've always played two, but I see why Alex opted for three purely because of just raw consistency and the fact that with three Floatstone, you actually just do not have a bad starter because you dedicate a Floatstone to your starter that's bad, say a Klefki, say a Unknown. You dedicate a Floatstone to your Trubbish, and you dedicate a third Floatstone that's probably prized. It's a very fair assumption to make. I've found games where I'm sitting there with a bad starter, and I'm like, well, I have to sacrifice a DCE to retreat this guy. Um, yeah, and then there's 4 DCE. Another build that 4 DCE is just super standard in a deck like this. A build that I was talking about with Mikey Fouché that he was very interested in. I was on the fence about, but I think it was a good idea. Is playing a form of basic energy, and like playing a couple of tech cards depending on your meta. For example, he was talking about Magearna promo and Jirachi promo to deal with, and like one or two metals just to deal with the threat of Rainbow Road, to deal with Giratina if that was more heavily in your meta, because you could just use the Jirachi promo to keep getting rid of their DDEs. And if they don't have any DDEs, they can't attack you, and if they can't Chaos Wheel, you usually win the game. The Chaos Wheel is what really gets you. Um, I like once played in a store tournament where my opponent was playing Dark Eye Giratina, and I was playing Vespiquen, and I was just like, okay, I lost because he just got Chaos Wheel. I'm not playing Ranger or any ways to counter it, and he just did not Chaos Wheel the entire game, and I was like, why were you just attacking me with Darkrai? That's why I won the game, and he was like, oh, my bad. Um, so yeah, that Chaos Wheel like ruins some decks. Like there's outs, like there's Ranger in this one, and if you play the Jirachi, there's that as an out. Matchup wise, you have 50-50s almost across the board, with Ray and Evital being very, very good matchups, Volcanion being slightly negative, Scizor being a little scary. But other than that, you have like very positive matchups across the board, or very even matchups, sorry, I want to say. But like Vespiquen is one of those decks where like a mistake you make earlier in the game could come back and haunt you as you make it to the later turns. Like Vespiquen's a deck where you have to pitch a lot of resources early and a lot of stuff early, and you have to just stop and think about what you have left, and you have to formulate a game plan on the fly. Your win conditions could be completely different. You could see like you could be like, oh, my win condition here is like I have to go for the bench, I have to ignore their attacker, and you have to like sometimes you have to end them and pray. Um, it's a very very stressful deck to play. Coming from someone who played this for almost 2 full years, or variations of this deck, it's um, it's very skill intensive. Mistakes can doom you. Um, so if you guys are interested in playing the deck, I would recommend a lot of practice. I would recommend playing a lot of reps with the deck before you can feel comfortable taking it to a tournament. Because figuring out some interactions in a tournament scenario is just unfortunate. Like as you're playing practice games and as you're testing, the thing that differentiates top level players from I guess players who don't perform as consistently is just the practice they have. Before going into a tournament, they know all of the interactions, like what to expect, what cheeky, cute techs are in certain decks, how to play around them. Like I played around Delinquent all day at Orlando. Um, didn't get Delinquent once, but I would play around it in my mind. Just things like that. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. Please check out Alex Hill's Six Prize article when it comes out. Condolences to him for getting ninth, but also on the same token, huge congratulations for him for getting ninth. With such a crazy deck that I find near and dear to my heart. Also, screw him for revealing this before I could play it at ARG and or Dallas. So, um, I mean, I was just gonna win Dallas with this. So, uh, thanks for watching. Please leave a like below if you enjoyed the video. Please comment and subscribe. Yeah. And I will see you guys later in the week with hopefully a ton of interviews with people from London. I think one of the guys was recording a vlog out there, so that should be super sick too. But yeah, I we'll see you guys later in the week. Thank you so much.